Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel, and we have some late breaking news this late Monday evening. Now, I want to mention here that this particular issue or this video is not being created for me to debate the issue over abortion, but to give you the information that has been recently discovered by Politico, who has obtained a draft of this particular opinion. So, from Politico, Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, draft opinion shows. Now, I'm not going to read the header there because it's down here, and I'll just read it from here. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe versus Wade decision, according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with who Roe is, or at the time she was identified as Jane Roe, her name is actually Norma McCorvey. And Norma was born in 1947 and subsequently passed away in 2017, so not too long ago. She was known by the pseudonym Jane Roe, was the plaintiff in the landmark American legal case Roe versus Wade, in which the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1973 that individual state laws banning abortion was unconstitutional. So if states wanted to, of course, ban the federal, or wanted to overrule the federal in this case, then, of course, then people would not be able to obtain abortions. Of course, you guys know, most of you probably guys know the basic stories of this, but later in her life, McCorvey became an evangelical Protestant and thereafter a Roman Catholic, and took part in the anti-abortion movement. So I don't want to be derisive, I don't want to be condescending, and I don't want to be mocking, but this is one of those situations where an individual was inconvenienced. I know I'm putting a little bit of my bias in there, but I'm trying to be sensitive to the situation. But a woman found herself in this particular situation. I'm not going to go into all the details about her. And then, of course, then Roe versus Wade came about, as this was challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court. So it is interesting, nonetheless, in some of the information that was given here. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes in the document, labeled as the opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of my opinion on this matter. And that is that maybe it's unfair. Maybe you think it's unfair. But as a staunch constitutionalist conservative, I believe that this should be left up to the people. We are a constitutional republic with democratically elected officials. So it may not be very appropriate maybe for some to think that if we put it up for a vote, that maybe a smaller majority or a minority of people would not be able to be represented. However, it is curious that in statistics, the Democrats are always focused on the female vote. But again, I'm just simply saying hypothetically here, I'm not going straight into this and say this is my wholehearted, complete opinion, because this is a very difficult matter. And of course, as a constitutional conservative, I'm also very much about personal liberties and rights. So it's a very interesting debate. But I also wanted to include a little bit of additional information here, particularly in this particular wording. A George W. Bush appointee who joined the court in 2006, Alito argues that the 1973 abortion right ruling was an ill-conceived and deeply flawed decision that invented a right, invented a right mentioned nowhere in the Constitution, and unwisely sought to wrench the contentious issue away from the political branches of government. So again, this is a matter where, well, it's been debated quite often. Maybe you're familiar with it, where, again, this was a law created from the bench, as it were, or the way sometimes it is mentioned, that is a bench law versus legislation or through a democratic process. We are a constitutional republic that practices democracy, but we have, well, basically it's easier to say it this way. We're a constitutional republic with democratically elected officials. So we use the democratic system to vote on things, of course, particularly officials, representatives, presidents, and law. And so in a way, this is basically generically saying that this is going to be turned back over to the states that can decide, and or elected officials, as they kind of mention here, or branches of government. And as you can see here, Alito's draft ruling would overturn a decision by the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that found the Mississippi law ran afoul of Supreme Court precedents by seeking to effectively ban abortions before viability. So this is a very difficult and complicated situation. It is, of course, a midterm election year right now. And I know the Democrats are extraordinarily desperate. Now, of course, I'm not saying this to be or to lead into this particular discussion or to create a debate or to bait my fellow opponents in the opposite side of the aisle. I'm simply saying that we are approaching the midterms. It is less than coincidental that this is now coming up. But I would also argue and maintain that even here in the state of Georgia now, of course, we're going through the selection process, the grand jury selection process over the phone call that President Trump made to our Secretary of State at the time during the election. So this is yet another opportunity for the Democrats who are lining up their strategy for the midterms. So they have to come up with something other than Orange Man Bad, because they will continue with Orange Man Bad, but they have to come up with these very emotional types of stories to refocus everyone, because I think and I believe, based upon statistics and data and information, the Democrats are in big trouble when it comes to the midterms this year. They're going to be, it's going to be, I don't want to say a red wave, but it's going to be something unlike what we've seen maybe in 40 years around the time of Reagan. So I think that the Democrats are trying to line up their cards. Now, I am not trying to pit this article on or into a political discussion from the point of view that I'm saying that this is some intentional act based upon political issues, but it is being used as such. So I think what's probably going to happen, or the strategy the Democrats are going to go with, is the continuation of lawfare against President Trump, as we're seeing here in Georgia, where they're now selecting a grand jury to look into his conversation that he had on the phone, very much like the conversation he had with Zelensky in reference to Joe Biden's statement, which in my opinion was still a quid pro quo. But nonetheless, guys, I think that what's going to happen in this particular matter is it will be discussed, and then we'll see how it moves forward. But I think what the Democrat strategy is going to be this year is going to be hinged on the Capitol 6 event, as I like to call it, despite the fact that the FBI found no particular correlation or individuals organizing an insurrection, as it were. And, of course, the releasing of documents, and, of course, the Democrats suppressing information regarding Hunter Biden's laptop, as well as the fact that they perpetuated a fabricated Russian collusion story for 2.5 years, kept all of this suppressed so that during the election, or to, of course, make President Trump look bad, and then, of course, to suppress the laptop during the campaign of Joe Biden. Now, I welcome your guys' thoughts and opinions down in the comments. This is probably one of the most argued and debated issues, a very, very, very left versus right issue. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. And this is the breaking news as of now. Of course, I'll continue to follow the story and follow up later down the road. Now, if you guys are following on BitChute or Odyssey and Rumble, I want to thank you guys for your continued support, and of course all of you guys here on YouTube. That will be the channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe. You can click on that to subscribe, of course, as well as to get notifications when I post up content. And I will see you guys in the next video.